Okay, guys, welcome back to Mastering You with Matt Sutton. And today we have another fantastic mastery episode today, a mastery episode that's going to help you upgrade, up level your body transformation efforts. Boy, do we have an expert, Jeff L8R, who is the owner of, so I just got it wrong already, L8R. Go on, Jeff. You do
L8R Lifestyle.
L8R Lifestyle, which is obviously a play on your name. And you just telling me just now that you just started this particular company 10 years ago, but you've been in the fitness industry now for some 20 years. Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, we've got a lot to unpack. What I always like to do, Jeff, is give the listeners some real practical things that they can take away from listening to today, that can plug into their life. And I'm all about action and getting people to, even if it's just one little thing that they can take away today that's going to get them moving. Hopefully you can inspire people as well to take that action. But just briefly, like where did this passion, obviously you told me before we started the show that you actually didn't go the traditional route with the fitness, you started in the corporate. And how did you get this passion to start your company?
Yeah, well, it's as I was telling you before we started here, I never really viewed fitness as like a real career. It wasn't something that was gonna be able to, I wasn't going to be able to provide for myself, provide for my family if I took that route. So and it was partly just how I was raised. But my passion for fitness, like going back before I really got into this and this business, but it really started with when I was like around 10, 12 years old. And it was exposure with like my mom. She, I was an 80s kid. And so she was doing aerobics and, the popular thing at the time, she would run 5 and 10Ks on the weekends. And that must have planted something in me. And I guess with that, it just made an impression on me. And I think by the time they allowed me to enter the weight room floor, I think it was either 12 or 14. I did, my mom was in one of her classes. I was in there tinkering around, which I'm kind of surprised I still have all my toes. I'm surprised I didn't drop a plate on myself and cause some sort of injury, but kind of developed a passion for it early on. And I wasn't the biggest kid. I don't think it's like the small man syndrome, like a lot of people say it is, but I was fairly athletic, but my main strength that I was fast. I could run fast. And so I spent a lot of time in my high school days, junior high school days, really trying to develop my leg strength. And that was my main focus. Obviously, I did the glory muscles too, worked my upper body, but that passion kind of carried on into my 20s. But again, I never really viewed it as a career. I did some personal training on the side. I was doing that as well as having a full-time job in the corporate world after graduating college. And it wasn't until, I started competing in bodybuilding that I'd been doing it for a few years, and I had somebody ask me if I could help them. It was one of my good friends asked if I could help them prepare for a bodybuilding competition. I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Why would you want me to do that? He's like, well, you're the only one I would trust. And I'm like, well, sure, but I'm not going to charge you. But if you can help me buy some body fat calipers, then great. That way I can test it, because that's like how I would determine if he's making progress or not.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it was born. And he won that particular competition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I treated him kind of like he did men's physique, which was the first year it was introduced. And I treated him like a bodybuilder, and nobody really quite knew what to expect, but it was a formula that worked. And he was a pretty talkative guy, spread the word for me with just organically. That's just kind of how he is. And I wasn't even trying to grow. It's just, he kept sending people to me. He's like, oh, you got to go talk to Jeff. You got to go talk to Jeff. And it just kind of grew from there. And my wife and I kind of shared that same passion. We both competed over the years, and I eventually turned pro in 2018, but we founded this company back in 2012. And as of right now, we have, 400 active members and, a great team of coaches. And there's a lot of details in between there, but that's kind of the big overview of my story. Yeah. But I was in the corporate world until 2014 and finally left and been on my own ever since.
So we can see, for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see a few trophies in the background. So you share with the listeners some of your wins.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's, I mean, my biggest win is actually my pro card that I got, my FBB pro card that I got in 2018. The trophy for that is really not impressive. It was a medallion that they gave me, which they kind of switched to, and that's kind of what they do most of the time now. So not, it's, you can't even see it in the view. It's, I think it's in another room. But yeah, there's a couple swords behind me. There's these big cups, and there's a bunch up above me, but it's just through regional shows that I had done over the years, and I've competed 40 times. So, you know, you compete that many times, you're going to have a lot of trophies. If you're, I mean, if you're 40 competing 40 times, you should probably be pretty good at it. So hopefully I would have some trophies, but yeah, a couple good wins in there. I never competed locally other than my first 2 years. And after that, I traveled all over the country competing.
Yeah. Fantastic. So getting into the nuts and bolts of, well, body transformation. I mean, obviously competing in physique contests and bodybuilding contests is really the ultimate, isn't it? In creating your body transformation.
It's the extreme. That's for sure.
And people really, you know, having had coaches work in my own company who have competed, you know, and really understand what they go through. It's something that your layman's person really has no idea. Just
no,
what you guys put yourself through, right?
Yeah, I think actually one of the least understood elements of someone getting ready for a bodybuilding competition is the amount of cardio that we do. You know, everyone just thinks that we're eating raw egg whites and lifting in the gym all day, but you know, I'm only weight training about an hour each day, and then, you know, I have my structured meal plan that I follow that's very, very strict, and then lots of cardio. And that's the one variable that varies quite a bit as you go throughout your training, and usually just goes up and up and up. But the amount of cardio that we do on a daily basis is usually more than somebody preparing for a marathon. Like it's significant.
Can you give us an insight into what that looks like?
Yeah, well, at its worst, or at its highest, I would say there's two extremes. I would either do 2 hours, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night, plus a weight training session. And the cardio was a steady state, so it was kind of a moderate intensity steady state.
Would you be doing this fasted, or would you be doing this after food?
I would do one in the morning and one at night. So the one in the morning, yeah, I would be fasted. I would have some aminos in my system, but you know, I don't really think that there's an inherent advantage with being fasted, but for convenience, I would do it first thing.
Yeah.
And then the other extreme, what I would do triples. So I would do high intensity interval training 3 times a day for 30 minutes, in addition to my weight training session. And that was pretty brutal. And that was, I mean, when my very last, when I turned pro in 2018, that was actually my last competition. And yeah, I was doing triples leading up to that. It was very, very draining, very hard.
And can you share just with the listener why you're doing that amount of cardio? A lot of people will be surprised, I think, listening to that. They'll be thinking that you're doing, maybe if you're doing doubles, you're doing double weight sessions instead of double cardios.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that would probably be the impression that most people have, but there's only so much weight training you can do before it becomes ineffective. And so, you know, the cardio element, as well as the food, is more there to help create a caloric deficit. And the further you go, the more metabolic adaptation you have. And so you have to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, because your body resists getting that lean. And so, you know, it slows down your metabolic rate, your testosterone levels drop. And so you kind of have to respond by upping the ante, you know, increasing the amount of time and more caloric burn.
And just are you mainly working with people that want to compete, or do you work with your average Joe, mum, dad, busy professional who just wants to get a bit healthier and fitter as well? You
know, the majority is lifestyle. So yeah, and you know, as much as my a history that I have with bodybuilding, I usually discourage people from going down that road. It's very extreme. I think it takes the right person go to do something like that. But you gotta, and for those even that they think they might be ready for it, they're usually not.
mm.
But yeah, I would say we focus most on a sustainable, fit lifestyle.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
I've always found through every aspect in life, I always thought there's a lot to be learned from extremes, isn't there? You know,
Oh yeah.
where the edges are. So, you know, what lessons, principles have you learned from going to the extremes of body transformation and you know, getting your pro card and winning these bodybuilding events that can apply to, you know, the average person listening who, you know, they're maybe 20, 30, 40, they've got 2 or 3 stone that they want to budge. What are some common themes or things that you went through as a bodybuilder that just got reinforced? It's like you knew it already, but you're like, God, this is, people need to know this.
Well, it taught me a lot, that's for sure. And I think going to the most extreme, I think that of anything that you could do, because it's a 24/7, uh, I mean, 7 days. I mean, you just you don't stop. It's, everything matters. And so it
Yeah.
taught me, I think the biggest lesson, other than the physical aspect, the physical work that you have to put into it, it really did. It's all like, there's a lot of mental fortitude that you develop and discipline that you develop as you go through it, because you know the world around us is not conducive to eating in a healthy way, or being as strict as you need to be as
Yeah.
a bodybuilder.
It
Yeah,
must
and
be
even
like living in a different, like I have never gone down that route, but I live what I consider to be not particularly normal life, because I live a pretty I make healthy choices. And you
yeah.
know, I go and fill up my car and go and pay, and you sometimes look at the aisles and I'm like, there's literally, apart from the water bottles that are sold here, there's literally nothing that I would choose to
Yeah.
buy. And that's me. I feel like I'm relative, but if I was competing in your position, it must feel like you're an alien or something, like when you're going
Oh
around the
yeah.
supermarkets and
Yeah, I mean, you don't really live, in the world that everyone else does. You know, I
by
mean,
the way,
you're,
I'm not saying that as a, like, it's, that's the unfortunate state that we're in as a society, in my opinion, is the
yeah,
fact
you're the
that,
weird one if you eat healthy, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you're the like you know, it's so I say to, I've said time and time again, and I'm sure you'd agree, it's no surprise that we have an obesity epidemic, because if you look at what we are exposed to in society, from, you know, in our environments, you know, we are swimming against the tide. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
if you don't have the knowledge, the education, you know, then your environment dictates your actions, and our environments are just conducive to poor behaviors. So I say to people all the time, don't be hard on yourself that you're where you're at, because the environment is just, you are going to have to do the work, because you've got to swim against that tide.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, the world just isn't, conducive to living fit, living healthy. I mean, the types of foods that we're presented with, the sedentary lifestyle that we all lead, you know, the conveniences that we have, and then just the expectations of, you know, instant gratification, I think, as well, for anybody that does attempt to try and better themselves and try and improve their health. They have the expectation that it should happen immediately. And you know, for anybody that knows anything about health and fitness, is that it's a journey, and
Yeah.
it's an effort, and something you have to adopt as part of your life, not something you do for a stint and then expect it to stick around. It just won't.
Well, from a coach to a coach, I'd love to hear your thoughts and insights into that particular situation. Because yeah, we get that all the time. We'll have, you know, Mary, she's 25 years or 20 years since she's like been in a gym, or
Yeah.
you know, since she's had 2 children, she's lost her confidence. She wants to turn her life around, but she wants it in like yesterday.
Yeah.
She wants a size 8, you know, yesterday. And so how do you go about, just, you know, is it just pure blunt honesty? What do you do to kind of calm them down a little bit and just to get them to think about that long game?
Well, I think, you know, there are certain things that we like to measure, like, well, how much do I weigh, or you know, what size clothes am I fitting into, and those are kind of like quantitative ways to measure our rate of progression. But I think the rate of progression that we expect has a lot to do with what we're exposed to, and a lot of that
Mm,
is done on social media, other forms of media, where we see sometimes fake transformations, outliers, something that's unrealistic, but in the end, they're a different person. And so we get caught up in this comparison syndrome. And so we're constantly looking at somebody else's journey that might have been really impressive. And of course, what you're seeing is what they want you to see, right?
Yeah.
You see the before and you see the after, and you don't know what happened in between, right? You don't know that they had ups and downs, that they struggled just like you did, that the only differences between them and maybe you is that they didn't quit. And so I think that it's important to recognize all the other benefits that come along with getting fit and making good, healthy decisions, aside from just the, how much do I weigh and what do I look like? There's all sorts of other improvements with energy, with productivity, with mood, with libido, with drive, just all those things that come along with living a healthier lifestyle that we often dismiss because it's like, well, I've only lost, 5 pounds, or,
Yeah, that's
and
such a shame. We've seen that so many times when people have lost, oh, I've only lost 4 pounds. That they've told us over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks how much happier they are, how much more confident they are in themselves, how much more energy they have. They can start feeling their muscles, and then all of that is kind of the way the brain's wired, though, isn't it? It's wired to focus purely, or not purely, but we're wired to kind of survive, aren't we? So it's always that you can have all of the positives in the world, but if there's one negative, and if that, particularly if that negative is a scale that you don't want to see, then that just wipes out all of the positives. And that really is an unfortunate fact that can push people back to square one and stopping.
Yeah, it does. And it's, when they do that, they're guaranteeing that they're not going to succeed, right? I mean, it's like, pick your guarantee. If you, and I really do believe that it kind of comes down to that. And those that continue to push through the challenges, that don't give up, depending on, no matter how slow it goes, the ultimate, I mean, the only expected outcome from not giving up is success. And then the opposite is true. If you give up, you're guaranteeing that you're not going to get there. It doesn't even make rational sense, but we still make that decision all the time.
Yeah, we're just not always very rational, are we? So,
No.
so getting to the practicalities of this person, who wants to make change. Let's say that they understand that, it isn't going to happen overnight, and they're ready to put in the work. They're ready to make a lifestyle change. What are some of your like non-negotiable habits, behaviors that you feel in the first sort of 3 to 6 months that people really, I mean, obviously it isn't as simple as that because everyone's different, right? So everyone's going to have different areas of their life that they need to double down on. But having worked with, I mean, how many people have you worked with through your business online now? Like
Coming close
thousands,
to
right?
about 7,000. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're gonna see some themes,
Oh yeah.
right? You're gonna learn a lot of, you're gonna see some trends, So whether it's certain nutritional habits, exercise habits, lifestyle habits like sleep, managing your stress levels, your relationships, are there like a big five or a big three that you kind of like, you could almost put your money on that, if this person just nails these 3 to 5 things, they're going to not recognize themselves in 6 months.
Uh, well, this is kind of going to go back to a little bit on what we touched on before we started, in that, I think at the heart of true change, you have to have some sort of shift internally. And I mean, because there's all sorts of front end tactics, there's the surface level decisions and habits that we can implement, and there's definitely a lot of things there. Then that's going to depend on the individual, but I think if you start to view things in have a different perspective on your health, and you start to look at food a little bit differently, I think one thing that's important to us in our coaching is explaining the why, helping them understand why we're doing what we're doing, and why we're eating in a certain way, and what benefits are from doing these types of activities. And I think the better the understanding they have of what it is that they're doing, rather than just
Yeah.
following blindly, then they're more likely to understand it and adopt it into their life. And so I think that's missing, I think, a lot of times in the fitness world. It's just like, here's the plan, follow the plan.
Yeah,
Don't ask
I
questions.
100% agree. Yeah, 100% agree with that.
So I mean, that's definitely one aspect. I think in the world that we live in, we're all very, very stressed. I think that we get caught up in comparisons. I think if you can try to eliminate You're never going to eliminate stress, but you got to learn to manage stress. So that's one element. Don't get caught up in comparisons, but just, it's the little things that add up to the big outcomes. And I think that if we can start to adopt, some of these, like, I don't know if you read the book Atomic Habits.
Yeah, love it. Yeah.
Fantastic book, and atomic in this aspect is not a big thing. It's like the tiny, tiny little things that we implement into our lives. And I think, drinking more water is a great start. Trying to move a little bit more every day. So, even if you're implementing just 10-minute walks, if you really are starting from ground zero, those two things will have a huge impact. And I think that kind of paves the way to making better decisions overall. Because I think sometimes we jump in too deep when we start and we make these huge, drastic, life-changing decisions, and we can't handle it because it's such an abrupt change from what we were used to doing.
Yeah.
And I like to adopt, like, more fitted into their current lifestyle rather than shoehorning them into something that it's completely foreign to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So kind of take
So
a
so you've got like your level one, like, starter, behaviors, like you say, just getting the mindset in place, and that's just such an easy thing to say, isn't it? Just have a good perspective and have a good mindset,
Yeah.
but people, have got to do some of the work. And I'd highly recommend, if it's the first time you listen to Mastering You, we've got probably 50 episodes on mindset and getting your why and doing your values and understanding yourself. So go back into those. Then you've got like the practical things that really just help you get started. So hydration is a big one, but it's just such a simple, but often you probably find the same, that the simple habits, are the ones that, like, the foundations. It's pointless going too advanced until they're really in place, right?
Yeah, I mean, hydration, sleep, I think most of us are sleep deprived. We're highly stressed. And those three elements, I think if we were making improvements there, we would see a big quality of life improvement overall.
Yeah, because if you get, let's say you get a guy, and he's decided, he wants to transform himself, like he wants to maybe follow in your own footsteps, but he's burning the candle at both ends. He's maybe drinking a little bit too much alcohol. He's not sleeping well. He's not hydrating in the day. You could give him the best program you could possibly put together in nutrition, but he won't have the energy to do even half of it, right?
Yeah. He's kind of cutting himself off at the knees there. He's not, like, some of those foundational key elements would be missing. And so as hard as he may work, his work may be futile. He may not get the results that you would normally expect just because some of those foundational keys are missing.
So let's say call it like level 2. So you've got like those level 1 base layers. They're starting to hydrate. They're motivated. They're counting their steps. Maybe, what would you say like the next level is? Like, is this where you start to implement resistance training into a plan? Starting to look at protein for the nutrition a little bit more, vegetables. At what point would you start to look at calories?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on where they're at before they come into it. But if we're looking at kind of like a level 2, I mean, yeah, we start to guide them on the nutrition aspects, help them understand macronutrients. Resistance training, I believe, should be the foundation of any sort of exercise plan. I mean, cardio is important as well, but I think you can appreciate the importance of resistance training, and that actually even becomes more important the older we get, which I think is a misconception by a lot of people. But
yeah, I'd like to just butt in there. I do understand, but I'd love for you to, with your background, to share with the listeners just why resistance training is so important, and also why, post 30, 40, 50 plus, why it becomes even more important. Because like you said, that people just, that's such a backwards thing. People really don't understand.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the average person, like, they want to lose body fat, right? And so the default that when they think of body fat, they're like, oh, I got to sweat, I got to get my heart rate up, so they automatically think cardio. And I mean, cardio is great. I mean, strengthening your cardiovascular system is great. You're burning calories by doing a cardio activity, but it's very one dimensional in that it does burn calories, it does strengthen your cardiovascular system, but in the end, like, you could sometimes lose muscle in the process of doing cardio if your nutrition isn't correct. But if you were wearing like an activity tracker and you were measuring the amount of calories burned in a 30-minute cardio session versus a 30-minute weight training session of equal intensity, you might be deceived, because it might say, and it probably would say, that the cardio activity burned more. But the way that weight training works, I mean, you're in there and you're breaking down muscle tissue, and your body has to recover over the next 48 to 72 hours. That costs calories as well. So you actually burn a lot more calories in the end from a weight training session. So that, from a fat loss perspective, that's great. We need to burn calories. But not only that, but you're adding more muscle mass. You're accruing more muscle mass as you go, which, and for the average person, like, well, I don't want to be a bodybuilder, I don't want to build all this muscle. I'm
The
like,
classic
no,
line.
yeah, like, don't worry. You're not going to wake up one day and be like, oh crap, I built too much muscle. Nobody's going to do that. But that added muscle mass increases your metabolic rate. It increases the amount of calories you burn at rest, increases the amount of calories you can tolerate, and that just adds to quality of life. Plus all the other things where, added shape, aesthetics, increased energy, increased endurance, strength, all those things. But it in the end, it needs to be at the base of your exercise plan.
A big thing that I haven't actually seen specific studies, but I listened to a lot of the well-known gurus talk about studies that have shown just how important it is to longevity as well, just having that sort of strong base and having that extra muscularity.
Yeah, and actually, I guess I failed to address the second half of your initial question, where, the older we get, the more important it becomes. I mean, just, I'm sure some people out there familiar with this term, but sarcopenia, which is basically just muscle loss with age. And a lot of that is due to lowered activity levels, lowered natural hormone suppression that tends to decline with age. And because of that, it affects bone density. The loss of muscle as we age decreases our metabolic rate, decreases our physical ability. And so it does become increasingly more important that we add resistance training as we age. I mean, even the 70s, 80s, 90s, if you can, they would benefit probably even more so than we would as we are in our 20s and 30s.
Yeah. When you think about it logically, it's fairly a no-brainer. Obviously, the other thing you get with the strength training is you're going to slow down any osteoporosis, any bone loss. So you're going to keep your bones and your structure of your body stronger. So if you did have a fall in your late 70s, 80s, 90s, you're going to be able to take that fall better. So it's not really that surprising. And
no, when you think about it logically, no. Logic isn't always involved in our decision making, though.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate thing. So so let's say that we're kind of starting to strength train, starting to eat healthier foods, and starting to understand and be educated on what macronutrients are. What would you say like the level 3 plane looks like? What are the things that we're doing to advance things further?
Well, I think getting a little bit more dialed in with the nutrition, making modifications as your body becomes adapted to your caloric intake. I'm really careful about, because I think the traditional way that somebody would diet is they're continually decreasing the amount of calories. And that's the only adjustment you would ever do. Like, oh, I started at 3,000 calories. Now I'm down to 2,500, and then let's take it to 2,000. We'll take it to 1,500. And that's all you're doing. You're just continually decreasing. And just because your body adapts to the intake, but I think it's important to periodize your nutrition. So have periods of time where you're either increasing calories, taking a diet break, doing carb cycling, different methodologies that you can implement as you're going throughout that journey, so that you don't, cripple your metabolism. So, I mean, even if you did take that route where all you did was decrease your caloric intake, if you got to your goal weight, your body's going to be in such a crippled state due to the lack of calories that you're not going to be able to sustain that new weight that you're at, and you'll just gain it right back.
Yeah.
So having a strategy like that you're and key tools that you're implementing along the way are very important.
And are you a fan of people getting a grasp of their calorie intake immediately, straight away, or does it depend on their education and what how much they understand about calories and macros first? Where do you see the sweet spot for people to start tracking, I suppose?
Well, I mean, it kind of depends on what kind of knowledge they had coming into it, depends on their level of engagement and interest going into it. Because there are some people where it's like, just tell me what to do. I don't care. I don't want to know why. Just tell me what to do. And other people that become really, really interested. And
Mm.
I've seen success with both of them. But as much as they say, don't, just tell me what to do, I'm still going to explain it. Because I think even just from a buy-in standpoint, like what if it doesn't make sense in their minds, they're less likely to do it, right? So I want them to understand, like, this is why we're doing this. We're doing this to avoid this. We're doing this so that we can get this. And that helps them be more bought into the process. And especially because they're likely going to get resistance from the people around them. Are like, well, why are you doing that? Why can't you have this? This is healthy, and they'll get all sorts of pressure externally. And if they have some reasoning internally, that at least they're either telling themselves or they're explaining to other people, then they're more likely to stay on track.
Yeah.
But yeah, just, people become, as they get going, they just get more advanced with the types of training that they're doing, the types of nutrition they're following, to the point where I think the end goal is that they feel like they can do it on their own, and
Mm.
they really have adopted it as a part of their identity, as a part of their everyday life, and it just becomes who they are. They are fit. They work out because they want to take care of their body. They eat in a certain way because they want to take care of the body and how that makes them feel. And that just becomes who they are, where they're not, it's not dominating every thought of every day.
Yeah. Yeah. This is I mean, this is the thing that I've personally found the hardest as a coach, because people are so different in their in how their brain works, how they're wired. Like we get the
Yeah.
people that they'll be quite happy just with a specific 2000 calorie, 1800 calorie meal plan. I will just follow that. I'm not interested. I don't have time to track all my food. I'll just eat what you tell me.
Yeah.
And then other people will want to, and then other people, the idea of tracking anything is never going to happen. So we look at more of a
Yeah.
habit-based approach. And it does kind of drive you a little bit nuts, because you can sometimes see the people that really need to take that extra jump, and you just know how much more clarity they would get if they just did 2 or 3 days of tracking their food, just to say, oh, okay, I understand why I haven't lost weight in 3 months now, because I'm 300 calories a day over on average.
Yeah. It's the frustrating element of our job, right? I mean, it's we see the potential, we know what they're capable of. We know that oftentimes what's holding them back is simply just their own limiting beliefs. And sometimes it becomes like this thing where, like, oh, I can't track calories, right? I don't want to learn all that stuff. And they're making it out to be this big complicated thing because they don't understand it. But if they were able to understand it, I think they would see that it's not as complicated as they think that it actually is. And it would be more likely to be adopted as a part of their life.
Yeah, for that person that kind of is a little bit kind of hesitant to, what do you have a time frame that you typically recommend to just to give it a whirl for?
Well, I mean, at least in our business, we like to have people, we like at least 6 months with somebody.
Yeah.
I honestly, if I could get 12 every time, I think that we would have even a bigger impact. But, with the 6 months, we're able to walk them through I'm not going to call it a strict curriculum. It's fairly loose, but there are certain things that we want to cover. Obviously, each person comes to us with their own goals. Sometimes they're super vague. And so we have to really clarify those and get, deep down. Cause actually, I mean, and I'm sure you see this when somebody comes to you like, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to lose fat and maybe build some muscle. Like,
Yeah.
well, everyone wants to do that.
Mm.
Right. But I think I'm sure you've had plenty of shows where they talk about the why. Well, why is it that you want to,
Yeah.
lose the weight? Make the goals more specific, more measurable, the SMART goals.
Yeah.
And those definitely do help. But as a coach, I think adding that accountability element in there really, really helps. But just, every person's individual. It's their own individual journey. And I think you have to make it their own. I think as a coach, the more you get to know them, the more you start to understand what their thought process is, and you can really get to the heart of what's driving their decision making and find a solution that's going to work for them forever.
Mm.
So
Yeah. Having worked with so many people, what are the big challenges? Obviously, we've just mentioned adherence. I mean, would you say that's the single biggest challenge? What are the things that come up the most with your clients that they struggle with that affect their results?
well, I mean, if you think of the process itself as being like basically have two tools that, with diet and exercise, right? Most people are going to struggle more with the diet side of things, the
Mm.
nutrition side of things. And so that, I think if they're able to get that element down, then it's going to be more helpful for them. But as a coach, I think that there are two reasons as to why we should ever change the nutrition approach. I mean, one, if they're not getting the outcomes that they think they should be getting, or you think they should be getting, then you need to make an adjustment. And then the other thing too is like, in order to increase adherence, like if they're having a hard time following it, then and I've seen other coaches post about this where it's like, well, I'm not going to change or modify your program until you follow it. I'm like, I view that as in a very negative light. And I'm like, well, no, it's still your job as the coach to give them something that they can follow. Now, obviously, there's a certain amount of responsibility that falls on their shoulders to actually carry it out. But you need to also work with them to help them find a solution that is doable. And so that's a big thing for us, because not everyone has the same work situation, the same schedule, the same life,
Yeah.
And so if you got somebody that's on the road all day versus someone that's sitting in an office all day, their meal plans should probably look a little bit differently, And
Yeah.
so I think finding a customized approach that really is tailored to that person is going to increase adherence to the program.
Having been in the industry for so long, what are some of the things that you've changed your mind on that, when you look back, you sort of laugh a little
Oh
bit at
man,
yourself?
so many. Yeah.
Because
I
obviously,
mean,
the science and the schools of thought and things have just changed so often, so much, particularly over the last 20 years. Yeah, go for it, Jeff.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that have changed from, from the very basic thing where I think when we initially started, we would say you would get a metabolic boost every time you ate. So if you ate more frequent small meals throughout the day,
Yeah.
you would boost your metabolism.
Mm.
That's not true at all. The fasted cardio thing, I think, has been debunked and disproven quite a bit. I do still like it, more of a convenience and a consistency standpoint. If you're getting it done first thing in the morning, you're guaranteeing that you're getting it done. But other than that, that's the only advantage that really presents most of the time for most people. My views on supplements have changed over the years. But I think really the psychological element involved in all this is huge. So when I first started, I did work with mostly people that were very serious competing, in
Mm.
bodybuilding and that. And so when I started to work more with people that were not interested in doing that, they were just interested in getting, improving their health, losing some fat. It was a different type of person. And when you got somebody that's competing, they're very, very dedicated. It's basically like, just give me bland chicken and plain rice and I'll eat it.
Yeah.
Right. And you give that to an average person and they can't hack it for more than a couple days. And honestly, like at first I was like, I don't know, like maybe I don't understand fat loss. How come these people aren't getting the same results as competitors? And it was basically just because of how the format of the plan was. And I wasn't doing my best job to really meet them where they're at.
Mm.
I was kind of, giving them advanced programs when they weren't anything close to advanced. So that has been a huge shift in my approach. It really does need to be tailored. You need to be able to work with a variety of body types and
Yeah.
personalities and situations. And that's definitely something that, you compare day one to day whatever I'm on now. It's completely different.
Yeah.
So, and I think there really is just meeting the people where they're at. And that's not something I fully understood when I started.
Well, what would you say some of the biggest key differences are with that, those two different crowds, those competitors and your sort of average mum, dad, just even down to the basics of how often they are reviewing their goals and how often, they're changing up their training schedule. Are there any real key differences, or is it just around volume and intensity?
Well, I mean, there's some basics that are always involved with anybody trying to make changes to their bodies, but I think, with competitors, it's pretty cut and dry. It's pretty black and white, where it's like, you got to be 100% on every single element here if we
Yeah.
want to get to our goal. And if you set that kind of expectation for the average person, they're going to fail.
Yeah.
And I think the average person has this all in or all out mentality. And so, like, if you screw up on one little thing, it's like, oh, I finished my kids, dinner because I didn't want it to go to waste. And that wasn't on their plan. And so they feel guilty because of that. And so, since they screwed up once, they throw in the towel for that day or maybe for the week, and then they just binge on whatever they haven't been able to eat.
Yeah.
So I think that the harsh restriction associated with diets is definitely something,
that's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point, that the non-competitor, your average person who just wants to lose a few pounds, feel a bit more energetic, they've got more margin for error to play with, haven't they? So
They do.
it should be used as a positive rather than the opposite of, like you said, what happens is if they have one bad weekend or one bad day, so that's a good way of looking at it, is, you don't have to be 100% everything. Like, if you're 80 to 90%, close to your calorie target, and you're still in that deficit, then you're still going to be
You're
on the
probably
road.
fine.
Yeah. If you're 80 to 90% of getting your sleep score good, like the previous night, it's still pretty good. Like, if you're around those average numbers, it's when things dip below like 60-50, isn't it? Like,
yeah I mean, I think so. We actually ask for like a percentage, like, okay, well, how well would you grade yourself? Like, how closely did you follow the nutrition?
yeah,
Maybe like 100%. Or if it was less than 100%, like, help us understand what that means, because everyone judges themselves differently. Some people are like, oh, it was 100%, but I had a couple burgers throughout the week and I drank a few nights. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like 100%. And other people will be like, oh, it was 75% because I missed a meal on Monday, and I just feel really bad about that. I'm like, okay, now you're judging yourself too harshly. So there's different personalities as to how they judge themselves. But then, like, those extremes where I think if we set the expectation of 100%, then you're more likely to have extremes, and you're going to see people where they're all in or all out, and they'll have some weeks where they really are 100%, other weeks where they just completely threw it out the window because they screwed up once, and that just led to it was a domino effect.
Yeah.
And so I think setting the expectation that you just need to focus on consistency, and you have to expect some challenges and some missteps, some deviations along the way. I almost said failures, but I don't want to call them failures, but that's just part of life.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a plan that deals and helps you handle life and live fit, then the likelihood of failure it's super high. Other than the person with the strongest willpower out there is going to fail. So we have to give them something that, and set the expectation that, hey, this is a journey. You got to expect that you're going to have some missteps along the way, and that's okay. As long as you just get back on track and keep going, you'll be fine.
Yeah, that is something that we do talk to our clients a lot about, is just from the off, is knowing that you probably are going to slip up a few times, and that's totally cool. And in fact, you want to be preparing for that, because it's going to happen.
I think if you set that expectation, then when it happens, they're like, oh, okay, it's not a big deal. He told me that something like this would probably happen along the way. Whereas if they're not expecting that, and they're like, how come I can't be 100%? My neighbor is, or this guy on Instagram is. What's wrong with me? And then they just feel bad for themselves, and it's self-sabotage kicking in strong.
What would you say is the number one thing that you see missing from the majority of weight loss solutions?
Well, I think the majority of them are too dogmatic. It's like this one single path is the only way, and this is the best way, and it's the best way for every single person on the planet. And I think that dogma that exists in the fitness world is very damaging, and it's very dangerous, because there is no one size fits all approach. But you get these people that are pushing some certain specific way, and if it doesn't work for you, then you think something's wrong with you, or you're just meant to be overweight. You're not meant to be healthy. You're not meant to be fit. No, it just means that method wasn't right for you. That's all.
Yeah.
So I think anybody that pushes the specific way and gives that kind of impression that this is the only way, and if it doesn't work, then something wrong with you, that's dangerous. And we see that a lot, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's a big issue. So yeah, just wrapping things up, a little bit now. What are some kind of words of wisdom that we can leave listeners with? Some practical, actionable. Obviously, we talked about a few. We went through those 3 levels. I think the 3 levels is enough, unless you've got anything else that you want to add to that.
Well, I think just as an all-encompassing thing, and I kind of touched on this before, I think that, the outcomes that you get are dependent on whether or not you keep going or whether or not you quit. Right. And I think, giving forth that effort, making it a priority in your life is something that I think we all come to the realization of at some point, one time or another in our lives. We realize that, oh, it's not an option to take care of my body. I'm supposed to, I need to, I have to. Sometimes when we come to that realization, it's where we've gone way too far down a road and we've dug ourselves a deep, dark hole, and it's really difficult to get out of. But even if that is the case, don't give up, keep going, persevere, have that grit to continue fighting, no matter if you're losing a half a pound a month or if you're losing a half a pound every couple of days. Like, just keep going. Your journey is your journey, and don't judge it based on anybody else's. Just keep going. Don't give up.
Love it, Jeff. Well, just the last question that I always ask. Obviously, the name of this podcast is Mastering You. How do you summarize in a sentence or 2 what mastering you means to you, Jeff?
Take ownership of your life. Take ownership of your decisions. And when you do that, your decision making will be probably a lot better overall. And when it comes to anything.
Love it, man. Well, where can listeners find out more about you? You have over 100,000 people following you on Instagram. That's obviously definitely seems to be a popular place. Anywhere else people can go, or is that your general go-to?
That's going to take them to anywhere they want to go. Because I have, they have my links in there that they can access all the other information. But if they just want to reach out to me, shoot me a message on Instagram. That's the easiest way. It's just Jeff Later, JEFF LATER is my Instagram handle, and they can find more content from me on there, and a way to reach out to me on there as well. Yeah,
fantastic. Well, I just want to congratulate you, on your work. You're impacting the world very positively. People like yourself are well needed, as we've discussed on this podcast. And unfortunately, society isn't set up to help people that well. So, it's great to talk to another coach who's trying to have an impact. So thanks so much, Jeff.
Thank you. It's I feel like what we're doing is important, and it's probably a losing battle in the end, but I'm going to try my hardest to get the message out there.
Yeah, someone's got to. Hey,
we have to. Yeah.